Hello everyone, my name is Peter Gifford and this is the Esoteric Order of Gamers. Welcome! Today we're going to have a gander at Warcry Bloodhunt. Yes, it's the latest Warcry set, and well, how many Warcry sets have there been now? Let me look over on the shelf there. There was the original starter set, and they came out with Heart of Gur, which added reactions to the rules and shook things up a little bit. This is Bloodhunt. We're still in the ravaged forests, the horrible beast-ridden land of Gur, in this big forest where, if you haven't read the fluff, well, in the middle of the forest is a crashed spaceship. They're the lizard-like creatures from other planets. This is all linked into the old world and all the background behind this. Oh, there's so much background stuff. Anyway, crashed spaceship. Everybody's going into this forest to try and find this place and all the treasures that no doubt exist within it. And these are two more factions. Now, this set doesn't have the Warcry rulebook, so it's not really a starter set, is it? I mean, it doesn't have the rulebook. However, it does have this warband tome, because the focus on this particular set are two new warbands, one of which is the Askurgan Trueblades, who are sort of a monk-like vampire faction, and the other ones are the Claws of Karanak, who are, you know, your classic corn-worshipping, blood-drinking, incredibly over-the-top, violent faction. We've seen so many of them in Games Workshop, isn't it? It's all about blood, skulls, blood, skulls. So, but these ones have a particular predilection for the bloodhounds, which are those sort of frilled lizard-like hound creatures. So they're a bit based on that. They're both nice-looking factions. They don't blow my mind. They're still good. There's nothing incredibly... I mean, we've got vampires versus chaos creatures, chaos men, battle things. You know what I mean. However, it does come with some very nice new terrain, very much still in the style of the last set, which was Heart of Gur, which is these bamboo things, bamboo walkways and what do you call them? Sometimes English words, speaking. Fortifications, that's the word I'm looking for. Bamboo fortifications with these horrific kind of fleshy trees and everything, and we've got some other extras. I'll show you those in detail because I have actually painted up the terrain. And I'm also going to tell you how to paint the terrain because I have some excellent tips on how to do it fast. Now, before we should go on, I should point out that Games Workshop sent me this set for free so I could show it to you. Of course, my opinions are, as always, my own, but we're going to check it out and see if you like it, because, you know, if you like it, you might buy it. Okay, then here's the Warcry Bloodhunt box. And this box is it's a little bit flimsier than the last one, than the Heart of Gur one, probably because this doesn't have to hold a hardcover rule book as well. So it's just a little bit flimsier. And the other thing I noticed with this one is that it came without shrink wrap. It had those sort of, what do you call them, the sticky plastic bits just on the side holding it together, which I agree from an environmental point of view is fantastic. I think that's really good. However, I have found in another set that I got recently that they did stick to the cardboard, which annoyed me a bit because, you know, you can damage your box quite easily, and I don't want to damage something that costs so much, and I like keeping the boxes. Some other people don't bother about the boxes because they just put all their models and stuff together, but I like to keep them. Anyway, when you open it up, of course, you get all this fantastic terrain and the models, and I'll show you those in detail in a moment. You've got your usual construction book here with all the rules on how to put this together. You've got this book, which is Predator and Prey, which is our warband tome, I should say. And in here, we've got the usual fluffy background about the fluffy, wonderful Willy Wonka place that is the Gnarlwood Forest. And there's some great artwork, as you can see, as usual, from Games Workshop stuff. And there's a background on these two factions. Now, as I said, we've got this, what are they called? I can never remember the names, the Claws of Karanak. And they're very much worshipping corn. You can see one of the guys there, very nasty. And they wear these sort of lizard-like masks to make them look like the Bloodhound creatures with the big frill and all that kind of thing. I'll show you the models in a moment. And basically, they're just kill, death, destroy, blood, the usual kind of thing. And really, Games Workshop are amazing in the way that they can spread out the same concepts over and over again when it comes to blood and destruction. I read this stuff and I just, doesn't do anything for me. But, it's a nice looking book. But I do wonder whether, after you've read this once, whether you'll ever read it again. Let me see, for example, the source of the claw's strength is the same as that which steals their sanity. Demons, specifically the hellish flesh hounds, demonological texts locked in the vaults of Azurheim, dub these hellish creatures the inevitable hunters, embodiments of wrath who chase down any who draw the blood god's ire. Flesh hounds are sometimes granted to Khorne's champions as marks of favour, but more often they prowl forth
from gore-dripping portals ripped open in the skin of reality, releasing soul-shaking howls. Oh.
This purple prose, it's so full on. Blood, death, destruction. I'd really like to see a few factions that are just they just love spreading joy, and they're really nice people. But they have to kill someone occasionally, when they get into a fight. But on the whole, they're quite defensive and they don't want to kill people. We just need a little bit of variety in the background. I know people just love all the blood and gore and death and destruction, but it's not very interesting to read about. Anyway, that said, I have to say the Askurgan, I don't know how you say that, Askurgan True Blades are a little bit different, though they do like, occasionally torturing someone in horrific ways, especially humans if they come wandering into their domain. But the thing about these guys is that they are sort of like a ascetic warrior monks. So even though they're vampires, they're trying very much to control the bloodlust, you see. So they go into the forest to kill monsters and beasts and everything. That's okay because they're beasts and they're pitting their martial skill against them and everything. But they do charming things. There was one thing in here that I thought was particularly horrible, where if someone a human wanders into their area, they might lock themselves in a coffin with this poor person and control the bloodlust that comes upon them, which sounds like a really creepy thing. Not only creepy, but kind of weirdly sexual. I don't know. I mean, nothing happens, but inevitably the other person goes insanely mad with fear and then is killed afterwards anyway. So it's grim. It's goth, it's the usual stuff. But, I guess they're slightly different in that they're, trying to control their urges a little bit. Good on you, vampires. So we have all this usual stuff here, predator and prey. So there are the figures painted, of course. And then we've got all the rules section here. And we've got the usual stuff, quests, faction rules. There's some slightly different rules for the Narwood terrain that we have here in the form of fortifications that we've got. Your faction rules and everything. And then we've got all the keywords that you can apply to the different types of terrain that come in this set, of course, which is nice. And some slightly different fortifications rules there, which is used if someone has a fortified position. Then we've got the quests for these particular two factions, and we've got a campaign tree if you want to do a little Warcry campaign as well, or campaign arc. And there you go. Then the cards. Now, of course, it does come with some new cards. As you know, in Warcry, you have cards at setup, which you choose. You've got one for deployment, you've got one for setting up the terrain, you've got one for twists and things like that. So you have a whole bunch of these little map cards using this terrain. You have got the deployment cards like so. You've got twists, which make things a little bit interesting. For example, Blood Mad Grotesque. The power of the Blood Mad Ravage can seep into the very bones of fighters that pass through it. This is the area we're fighting in, the Blood Mad Ravage. Hey, I'll see you down the Blood Mad Ravage, okay? Yep, let's have a beer. Excellent. Warping their flesh until they become a bulging, throbbing mass of muscle, screaming in anger as they tear through their enemies with no thought to defense. So, usual stuff. And then we've got victory conditions here as well. So, I love this card system in Warcry, and why they don't do a sci-fi version of Warcry using the card system I will never understand, but they seem very focused on kill team, so they're not probably going to do that. We've got our unit cards for the two factions. Again, these lovely cards with, I love these, big picture of the painted miniature, icons for the different sections of the card. All the information is there. Sure, you have to refer these icons, the special abilities, to your reference sheet and everything, but still very, very nicely designed. Then we've got these faction sheets at the front here. There we go, for these two factions and their special abilities, depending on what dice combos you roll up. So there you go, some nice stuff. Again, no Warcry rulebook, so this isn't a starter set. It's definitely a faction set if you want to get into these two factions and grab this terrain as well. And let's look at this terrain. Isn't it gorgeous? So as you can see, the feature of this particular terrain is that it is much more fortified. You've got big walls here and spots to stand behind the walls and everything, which I really like. If we take these little ladders and things down, these are our two big pieces, and aren't they beautiful? Especially this one, which is just huge. Fantastic big set here. And, you know, coupled with the stuff from the Heart of Gur. Oh, my glasses are fogging up here. It's getting it's a bit warm. I haven't got any ventilation, and it's quite warm down here in New Zealand. Except for up north in New Zealand, where we've had terrible tragic weather incidents, people dying, floods. It's been horrific, and here am I down in the South Island and everything's fine. So I very much feel for the people up there having to go through that disaster. Anyway, so painting this, well, it is actually quite easy to paint, and you can get these good results quite easily. And this is where contrast paints are really your friend. They're fantastic for this kind of thing because all the detail comes out without any effort. You don't even have to dry brush. I mean, I did a bit of lighter dry brushing on the tops here, but hardly any at all, and a bit of dry brushing on the tree, of course, as well. But the contrast paint is fantastic. So the main one I'm using here is Skeleton Horde, which is incredibly useful. Now, I use Skeleton Horde for the skulls and things, of course, for the skeletal parts, but I mix it also with a little bit of green. There's I think it's called Munitorium green, but just a sort of darkish green, and it gives it a slight green feel for the bamboo. And just put in a little bit, not too much, because you don't want the bamboo to look too fresh. You still want it to look sort of a beige color, but just with a little bit of green. And that gives the effect. So you just slather it all over there. Make sure it doesn't pool too much in corners and things like that. And then when it's dry, you can use snakebite leather to do all the little ropes holding it together. That is a bit tedious. It takes a little while because there's a lot of detail there, so you have to do all that. And also, I highly recommend that you don't attach these outside walls. Paint those separately, because otherwise it'll be a nightmare getting right in there and trying to paint all these bits of rope and everything from behind. So keep those separate and just super glue them on at the end when you've painted everything. So with that, all the bamboo stuff is done. Of course, you've got Skeleton Horde for the skulls and things and skeletons that are hanging from it. When you do the trees themselves, coated the entire thing with wildwood, which is a very dark brown. And then when that was thoroughly dry, I did a little bit of dry brushing first with a very dark flesh color. I think that was from memory, no, I forget what it's called, but a very dark fleshy color. And then you can do some further highlights just on the tops and everything and the joints and things like that with a light flesh color. And that gives it a dark brown base, but also just a slight fleshy look as well. When that's dry, it's a little bit boring, but go through and paint a bit of a shabty bone on all these thorns at the end here. And when that's dry, a little wash of Agrax Earthshade over those thorns will make them look as though they're actually set into the tree itself, and it'll look really nice. A little bit of light dry brushing on the skeletal parts. All the bits around with the rocks and everything I did relatively roughly. There's some grey paint and with a light grey highlight for the rocks. But really the rest of the soil areas start with a a dryad bark mixed with a bit of black, so for a really dark brown, and then just dry brush that up to a shabty bone. Very easy to do. When that is all thoroughly dry, you might want to do a bit of a wash around those soil areas with Agrax Earthshade, and also just use Agrax Earthshade here and there to deepen the shadows here and there. You can also use Athonian Camo Shade, which is a sort of greeny, browny shade, which is really good for washing some of the lower areas here. So you can see I've got a bit of a graduation here from dark to light. There's a bit of dry brushing up here and a bit of wash down here, and it just gives it that feeling of depth, so it doesn't all look like flat color. It looks like it goes from dark up to light. Use those techniques throughout and you'll be laughing. And for the stonework, I used I think it's Seraphon green for that, but it's a sort of dark aquary bluey green, washed with Agrax Earthshade, a bit of dry brushing, very easy to do. Now I should point out, of course, that you do get a board with this. It's a double-sided cardboard area, so you've got your play area as well. Let's look at the miniatures themselves. And of course, you know, we've got all the usual things going on here. Axes, furs, skulls, chains, the classic Games Workshop stuff. They're nice and dynamic. They're pretty cool. As you can see, we've got this kind of bloodhound hybrid guy. It was sort of like half human, half bloodhound or something. So that's impressive. We've got guys with hooked chains, which are nice, spears, axes, that kind of thing. The vampire guys are a little bit more elegant. They actually remind me a bit of the kind of Elric of Melniboné, Michael Moorcock kind of, you know, long face and that kind of thing. And they've got sort of hooks on the end of ropes and these strange spear things with these bulbous tips, which are very unusual. And a sort of shoulder pad thing made up of what look like bones, or well, not even bones really, it's kind of a grid of something. I don't know, it's an unusual look. And there we've got this sort of vampiric werewolf kind of character as well, who that looks like a female character actually, which is a bit of a change. But very spiky, very vampiric looking, and actually really, really nice. They're definitely the one I prefer out of the two. They have a little bit more character. I get a little bit tired of the whole sort of Khorne warriors, you know, blood and skulls thing, so it's nice to see something a little bit different. And these vampires do look quite elegant. A lot of motion in their movement and swirling capes and coats and all that kind of stuff. So very nice indeed. Well, that's it everybody. Warcry Bloodhunt, skirmish combat in the realm of beasts. You've got two factions, 16 miniatures there, and some very nice scenery. And I think taking this scenery and putting it together with the scenery that I got from the original set is going to be a very impressive board of bamboo and big fleshy trees. I still think Warcry is great. I really want to get a battle report done for you so we can see this in action again, because I have done a battle report, but it was a long time ago. So many things to do at the moment, it's just crazy. Lots and lots of games coming out and lots of things to play, and only so much time, unfortunately, but I'll do as much as I can. And whatever I do, I hope you enjoy it. Please subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. Even if you've been watching this for ages, you may not have subscribed, so just go down there and check that subscribe button, hit the all notifications bell icon so you get notified every time there's something new. I'd really appreciate it. It ups my numbers and impresses people that I'm trying to impress, you know, if I'm trying to get freebies and stuff. So please hit that button. By the same token, if you go to my social media channels, just follow if you haven't already. Would love to boost those numbers for a while. I've sort of been sitting at the same level for a long time and I'd like a bit of a boost. So if you have a moment, please do that for me. I'd appreciate it. If you're really keen on my stuff, I can't tell you how much I'd appreciate it if you went to my Patreon page and checked it out and thought about supporting the Esoteric Order of Gamers. Over 10 years now, there's a lot of exciting things happening too. I'm working on some new stuff that I think you'll find very, very cool. Can't tell you yet. In the meantime, please hang around and see what else is coming. We've got lots of rules summaries in the works as well. Thanks for watching everybody. Good gaming. I will see you next time. Bye for now.